Hey guys, Montel here, and welcome to this edition of Let's Be Blunt with Montel. My guest today was diagnosed with Crohn's disease back in 2011 and has been utilizing cannabis to allow him to function in his everyday life. He's a Michelin Star Chef, a food designer who spent a majority of his career working 80 hours a week in fine dining restaurants and hotels around the world. Jean-Georges, he's worked for him, Mario Batali, Richard, I think it's Ekkebus, are just a few of the chefs that he's spent a lot of time with personally. And he's now currently the CEO and founder of Plant Jam, a cannabis-based edibles company based in Massachusetts. David Yusefzadeh, did I say that right? Welcome to Let's Be Blunt with Montel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Did I say your last name right?
Pretty close. Pretty close. It's Yusefzadeh.
Yusefzadeh. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm so sorry, sir.
No, not at all.
Got to get it right. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and where you go to school, and what were your intentions in life?
Sure. Grew up in Lexington, Kentucky, originally from Minneapolis. Grew up in Kentucky, elementary school, middle school, high school. Grew up with two parents who cook really well, not professional chefs, but I grew up around a lot of great food, and my best friend growing up was Japanese, so I was fortunate enough to be exposed to a lot of different flavors, a lot of different styles of eating, and being in central Kentucky, you wouldn't necessarily think that sashimi, raw fish was present, but because there was a large Toyota plant close by, a lot of the executives had a lot of fresh fish flown in. So I grew up just eating, again, not your typical teenage kind of menu and diet, and ended up graduating high school and moving to Charleston, South Carolina to go to culinary school at Johnson & Wales, one of their old campuses.
You graduated from high school with the intent to go to culinary school?
Correct. Yes, I was working in restaurants throughout high school and cooking a lot at home. I was certainly one of the, I guess you could say, a weird kid, because I have two older brothers who were playing every sport possible, and I was watching Traveling Chefs of Europe on PBS. This is pre-Food Network.
Here, I'll tell you something very funny. I'm way pre-Food Network, but if I go back to my childhood, I started playing in bands. I was a musician. I played in bands starting at about age 15. And then by the time I hit almost my senior year of high school, my band, it was very, very interesting. All my bandmates were guys that were in their late 20s, early 30s. And so we had gigs in nightclubs and places that I couldn't even walk in the front door of. I had to go around and go to the back door because I was underage. Sure. And we got one gig that was going to last for 3 weeks in Ocean City, Maryland. And it was at a pretty popular restaurant there. And, the band went on. We went on at like 8 o'clock, and we would play from 8 until, midnight. And the restaurant didn't really shut down. Like, there's an area where the band played, and the dance floor and all that was separated from the eating and dining area. But what I ended up doing was I was working there, and I had to stay in Ocean City. I'm from Baltimore. I had to stay. It's like 100 miles away from home. I had to stay there for 3 weeks. And so I woke up the next morning after the first gig, and they put us up in this upstairs area that they had that we could sleep in. And I went downstairs, and I remember walking down, and the manager was like off the Klimt. He was all yelling and screaming at somebody else. They were screaming because the sous chef had walked out, and they didn't have a sous chef that day. So I'm 16 and a half years old. And I'm a sous chef. Bullshit. I don't know anything you talk about. But I, like you, grew up in a home where my father and my mother both cooked.
Right.
So I started cooking. I remember I started cooking. I started messing around on the stove at age 7. When I was in elementary school, I would cook breakfast, left that house. And and then I kept going. I kept doing that. So I ended up walking down to the manager and said, dude, I got the sous chef stuff down. I can do that. And the guy said, okay, cool. So I ended up double dipping. I literally worked from like 2 in the afternoon until 6.
And then went on stage.
Do all the food prep, then went on stage. And during the break, we'd go back in the kitchen to break out some of the stuff that I already prepped. And if I had to fill in some more stuff, I would do that. Go back out. It was crazy.
It's a skill set that you can really step into to any kitchen and have some of those basics down. So it's fun to hear. I think spending careers in kitchens, you kind of build this community, right? You spend a lot of time with these folks, so you're you get to see how someone else grew up making the same dish that you grew up know how to making in a different way, and you really get perspective through this food. And I think that's, that'll lead into some of our later conversations around what we do these days. But basically spent my career in restaurants, in hotels. After culinary school, I was at the Ritz-Carlton right outside of Atlanta. Decided to go back to school, went to the University of Minnesota, where I triple majored in food science and nutrition, sociology, and agriculture economics. So still focus on food, but in different avenues. Graduated from the University of Minnesota and moved to Hong Kong and started working at the Mandarin Oriental Hotel there. Was there for a bit and then actually transferred here to the Boston area to the hotel here. Spent about a year and a half here, back to Minneapolis briefly to open a restaurant, then down to Chicago to open Italy with Mario Batali, and eventually came back out to Boston for graduate school. So been involved in the, food, continuing education, exploring agriculture, hemp, cannabis world for quite some time.
Before we talk about your transition into cannabis and stuff, let's talk a little bit more about your career as a chef. I mean, what was that like, man? You were working in Hong Kong, you just left the United States, and the hours, the stress, the pressure, all that stuff?
Yeah, restaurants are the ultimate multitasking environment that you can be in. You're not only working with ingredients that break down, oxidize, change over time, but you have to coordinate with the other people that you're cooking next to. So, most kitchens are divided into a meat station, a fish station, sauce, vegetables, etc. So you're coordinating with people around you all the time to hit the window at the same time with your dishes to go out to the dining room. So it's a massive emphasis on communication, massive emphasis on being part of a team, making sure that it's not all about you. You're not the only one. It's really helping out everyone so the restaurant can succeed as a unit. It's a great learning experience. I think the pressure is real. There's a show out now called The Bear, which everyone has been watching and texting me about and messaging us, and a lot. I think it's probably the most realistic insight into what chefs go through on a daily, weekly, balance, especially opening a new place. But kitchens are tough. There's a lot of testosterone. There's a lot of ego. You're dealing with fire and sharp things. So those are certainly added elements that create a little bit of stress. But
so you don't want to have a lot of testosterone around it. Not sharp.
Correct.
Environment. Yeah, go ahead.
Correct. And that's a big part of it too. I think, I started, I worked at the Ritz-Carlton at Reynolds Plantation, which is 40 miles from Atlanta, east of Atlanta. And my boss at the time, Ruben Garcia, I was 19, and he knew that I didn't know much, but could tell that I cared a lot and was willing to teach me and help me kind of, learn the ropes and understand a little bit more of what it really took to commit and be dedicated to this project. And I just fell into an amazing group of people that he was surrounded with. And that, again, that was kind of that first family that really showed me what things were supposed to be like. And from there, it was just building onto that foundational experience. And
how old were you about then? How old were you then?
I was 19.
And that's about the same time that you got diagnosed with Crohn's disease, is it not?
A few years later, but that was kind of the first. So being in kitchens, your diet is not great. Your sleep isn't great. Your stress level is extremely high. And
explain that to people, because they won't understand when you say your diet's not great, but you don't get to eat the meal that you put on the table for somebody else. You eat the scraps, right? You eat the scraps.
Correct. And most of the time you don't really want to, because you're cooking it every day, right? If you work at a pizza place, you don't eat that much pizza. It's just kind of the way it is. I think for us, having limited time available to eat, having ingredients in front of us, we would usually take, if someone overcooked the steak the night before, we would save it, chop it up, throw it in a fried rice, and feed it, as a group. We'd have family meal every day. We ate for nutrients. We didn't eat for pleasure when we're at work. You also don't want to be full while you're cooking. You want to be hungry. You want to be able to taste something and instinctively know what goes into that dish right away. If you're full, you're not tasting it with the same mentality. So, I think diets of most chefs are not great, and there's certainly a lot of alcohol and other elements around that don't contribute. Lack of sleep, lots of cannabis, and that's actually kind of a fork in the road. I think in most restaurants, there's in general a lot of cocaine, a lot of alcohol. I think most of the chefs that I know prefer cannabis, and we were really trying to calm down after a shift. We were trying to mitigate a lot of the adrenaline that was in our bodies. Some of the front of house folks were turning it up and had pockets full of cash, and they were ready to go out all night. So big divide, in most restaurants in that regard.
Yep. But then all of a sudden did you sense something was going on? And again, working in a restaurant, you're literally sampling all kinds of different foods. Did that
Right.
exacerbate your Crohn's?
The stress level definitely helped it surface a lot earlier than it should have. I was on my way to a jazz concert in Burlington, Vermont. I was going to see Herbie Hancock. Couldn't have been more excited. Never made it to the show. Was staying at an Airbnb the night before. Woke up in the morning, had a lot of stomach cramping. Went to the bathroom, and it was nothing but blood.
Right.
And set off a lot of alarms. Went to the hospital, and they said, "You have chronic Crohn's disease. How did you not know this? It shouldn't reach this point without you being aware of it." Well, at the time, I was exercising frequently. I was doing lots of sit-ups. My abs were always tight. My torso was always tight. A lot of the symptoms that come from Crohn's feel very similar to that. There's a lot of tension and inflammation, in that area. So I didn't notice anything of it because, again, there were no other symptoms surfacing otherwise. My stomach acid was high, but that's not unusual for most chefs with that stress. So it really kind of took a slap in the face in that regard to pause, what I was doing. And every gastroenterologist that I've seen told me that I needed to lower my stress and get more sleep and eat better, which is very challenging in the industry that I was in. So kind of entered this unique place of, what do I do? What are my options? And started on quite a few different medications and went down a very long path of finding things that would work for a period of time and then would eventually stop working. And most doctors said, "Oh, you just need more of this drug," which is not the answer, but very typical for a lot of people in this space.
And
And
did you have to take a break from being a chef during that period of time?
I took a short break. I mean, literally a 6-week break, nothing major, but just enough time to really understand what was going on and what it was going to take. We wanted to verify that was the only issue and that there wasn't something deeper. So I had MRIs on my small intestines. I mean, I went through a whole series of tests, just to make sure that was, the only thing that was really going on at the time. But no long-term break. No, hard to just kind of stop when you're running a business like that. So jump back in and eventually throughout the years, really just all of the medications I was getting were failing. Nothing was working long term. And I ended up on a drug called Remicade that was given to me through an IV every 8 weeks. And I was taking 400 milligrams, sitting in a room surrounded by others that were getting similar drugs, watching, reruns of The Price is Right and kind of just sitting dormant in this room. It's a really dark place to sit and be surrounded by, other people that are sick as well. And two of my cousins and some friends were really pushing me to look into cannabis for treatment. And I was very familiar with it at the time, but certainly had not viewed it in this regard. And happened to move to Massachusetts and got a medical card, went into dispensaries and started to look at the products that were there. And typical gummies, chocolates, nothing. It was all kind of candy based, and really started to evaluate. Well, I know how to cook. I know how to make cannabis butter. Let's start exploring things that will work for me. Started making recipes at home, and ice cream was one of the first things we made that really worked. And it also made sense for me because it was a nighttime product that I would have before bed. And my goal was always to increase my rest and increase my appetite. And, two big side effects of cannabis are getting good sleep and having the munchies. So it really started to kind of play into what I was doing. And long story short, ended up leaving all synthetic medication and moving on to full-blown cannabis in June of 18.
Wow. Okay. And then you decided to not only do that for your own health care, but you also decided, well, I do this, it tastes pretty good. Maybe I'll share this with others. Is that
Correct.
when you decided to start working using your talents in cannabis full time?
That's right. That's right. So we put in an application in the town that we're in Framingham back in 2017 and, started having these conversations with the local task force that was here and eventually put an application in with the state. And took quite a bit of time and energy to get through, but made it to the market. We started selling our first products in June of 21. And ice cream is our flagship, but we do other things at this point.
And you beat Ben and Jerry's to the ice cream, did you not?
Ben and Jerry's, yeah, Unilever. We've been fortunate enough to meet Ben and hang out with him quite a bit. He's been in the space, really great friend, and extremely helpful in everything that we're doing, just from kind of a mentor conversation. But yes, there was some early chatter of them getting into the CBD ice cream space, and Vermont's a extremely cannabis friendly state.
Correct.
But their market kind of just kicked off pretty recently, so from the rec side. So I'm sure we'll be seeing some ice cream up there sooner than later.
Yeah. Now, what can you share with us about some of your cannabis products and the whole innovation process?
Sure. So we, coming from the restaurant industry, when we're looking at a product, we have a library of recipes. You can think of us like musicians. We have all these songs that we've recorded. We have all these recipes that we've done over the years and versions of them. So now we want to really figure out, A, what's going to resonate with the customer base, B, what we'll get through testing from a microbial and mycotoxin standpoint, and what's kind of hip. So ice cream for us was really a no-brainer. Our executive chef, Linnea, she makes incredible products and has this kind of pastry background. And so when we were starting to get into ice cream, we were looking at what is the energy delivery. Fat gives you 9 kilocalories of energy per gram. So that was something we really wanted to lean into. Innovating on the ice cream side still keeps us in the treat category, but allows us to really bring in a lot of things that other people aren't working on. It was definitely a heavy lift to bring freezers into dispensaries. It was a heavy ask to get some of these dispensary owners to bring freezers in. I mean, the price of a dispensary is extremely expensive. So if they're going to give us some real estate, we want to make sure it's worth their time. But we started summer, June of 21, and kind of just been slowly trickling up this whole time. So ice cream was definitely the biggest, drop that we've made. We currently have some chocolate bars that are hash infused, rosin infused, out with one of our partners, Bountiful Farms. And then we also make the cleanest gummies on the market. So we make vegan, no sugar added. We use real fruit, full spectrum cannabis. So we're really trying to just focus on, I wouldn't say necessarily the highest tier, because I don't want it to seem snooty, but certainly people that are more interested in what's on the inside of the products that they're consuming, not just the cannabis, high quality cannabis with high quality ingredients. And
so right now you currently offer what in Massachusetts?
Ice cream, chocolates, and gummies.
Yeah. How many dispensaries are you in, do you know?
Currently, we're in over 70. We've made it into over 80. We've lost a few clients. We've gained a few new ones. But we're selling everywhere from Western Mass down to the tip of the Cape. So you can pretty much find us in any area you're in.
Yeah, I'm in about 40 of them. So I got a product line that's in about 40 different dispensaries.
Right.
I'll start looking for you.
Yeah. We were just with the Primitive team this weekend. We were chatting about you, actually.
As a matter of fact, I get to come up. I'm going to probably come up again next month. I try to get there every other month to do some dispensary visits, explain my product difference to the consumers. And so I'll definitely will be looking for some ice cream when I get up there.
Yeah, we'd love to see you. We also do, a lot of dinners. We do some infused dinners on the side. We do a lot of private events. So we'd love to have you at one of those as well if it lines up with your schedule.
Absolutely. Now, are you looking to expand to other states?
Definitely. We're working with some folks right now, some of our investors that are operating in other states. Our goal long-term is more to get out of operations and to focus more on IP development, licensing, white labeling, building brands for other folks. So I think with where we are with this whole library of recipes, the Massachusetts market is confined to the state lines, right? So we need to find partners in other states in order to bring some of these things to the market. So we're certainly looking to expand.
Any advice you want to get? A lot of my listeners are tuned in to see if they can pick up some tips or things. Any advice that you would give to a novice on how to cook with cannabis? Because I've had some issues, not issues. I watch. I'll put it to you. I watch a lot of these when they had them on. There were a few different cannabis consumption shows that were on. And
Netflix, yeah.
I really, honestly, I'm the one who I don't. Maybe I'm speaking wrong or speaking to the choir, but I don't understand why people think they have a need to cook with their oil at temperatures over 250, 300 degrees. It just seems, to me, I don't understand it. I understand everything that I make and consume, except for I do bake a really mean muffin. However, even those muffins, once there was isolates and oils available, I stopped baking the cannabis into the muffin. I literally would bake a muffin, punch a hole in the middle of it, and bake it through. Make sure that when it finished baking, when you took that little muffin out, there'd be like this little pencil hole in the middle. And I'd take that pencil hole, pour some oil in it, let that sit overnight in my refrigerator, and that's the one I would eat. Because to
Right.
me, as I bake off all the terpenes, what good is it? You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm gonna get THC.
I'd say you're further ahead than most people. I mean, this is where the conversation is. This is where we come in, and the future of on-site consumption is something we're very interested in, and we've been talking to the Cannabis Control Commission about here in Massachusetts, because what you're saying is exactly what we talk about: denaturing proteins, heating your oils past a certain point, killing off terpenes. From our brand perspective, one of our ice creams is a rosin infused ice cream, and we went to Harbor House, one of our partners, found a strain, the terpene profile that we really loved, and then we built a flavor around it. So we're more interested in celebrating the terpenes rather than hiding them. So when you're talking about cooking, that's a big part of it. And I
You burn
think
off
it's
terpenes, so you lost. If you're doing it
so
for
much.
medical reasons, you lost so much. And honestly,
Correct.
I do think you actually, again, I'm pretty sure you impact the amount of THC that's left over. Because I mean,
If you're eating it, yeah, time and temperature abuse is a big no-no. But this is where we come in. This is our hope and our goal, is to bring that education in this regard to it.
I know my folks in my office have reached out to you to talk a little bit about,
Correct.
looking at some ideas that we have, because I've got a couple. I've had some ideas for some products that I've really held back on because I've been trying to find the right person who understands the difference in what I'm
We would, yeah, we'd love to continue that conversation. I mean, we are hoping to not only expand, but to expand in this kind of education mentality. Not a lot of people would understand what you just said about burning off those terpenes. They don't have the proper receptors to receive that information.
Right.
There's a long way to go. And post COVID, a lot of chefs were out of work. I mean, during COVID, but post COVID. And so we hire all chefs. So we want to bring this understanding of food, this understanding of cooking, because when you start to educate them about what happens with cannabis, they can plug it right into these cells that they already have formed. So
I got do I have a product for you? We're going to talk about something, dude. I'm telling you. Wait, no, we're not going to talk about it here, but we'll talk about it. I'm telling you.
Looking
I got
forward
something
to it.
I ain't kidding you. I know it's going to be one of those things. It's going to be like, it'll be on every shelf of every single dispensary in the country if we get it done.
We'd love to chat about it. We've got some fun things in the works. I think the dinners for us are really the best place for people to get to know us, people to get to taste what we're thinking about, what we're working on. I mean, we've cured egg yolks and cannabis. Go ahead.
Well, let me just stop you there when you say dinners, because I don't understand. That's another one of these things that just blows my mind. Most of the states, in their initial passage of laws, didn't allow for on-site consumption. Now they're starting to open up opportunities for on-site consumption.
Right.
And so, I mean, but you have to do it in a private location and this, that, and what have you, I've been to a couple of foodie experiences. I've been to one here in Miami. I've been to one in California, a couple of them in California, where, you go in and you can sit down and have a really good infused meal. And you can also, actually consume cannabis in the same, smokable cannabis in the same location. Right. But what's been the feedback from the public? It just seems like there's a little reticence, when people are afraid to go into a place. What have you got?
We see a mix. We see a lot of people that, I mean, we've been very fortunate. We've been cooking infused dinners for almost 6 years now here in Massachusetts. We've had a great response. We sell out, all of our events. We're actually working on some weekend getaways now, where we go rent a house, in Western Mass, and have 5 couples come out, and we treat you to a whole weekend, cooking, yoga, meditation, kind of a full package of cannabis getaways. But the on-site consumption is unique because we've opened so many dispensaries, cultivations, manufacturers, but there's no place for the community to come together and enjoy these products together. Everyone has to find, if they're outside of their own home, some safe place to consume. So for us, again, coming back to being chefs, we want to build a community around it, and food for us is the biggest connector. So throwing these dinners, we're able to custom infuse every course. So if someone who's trepidatious, coming in, we can say, look, we can give you 5 milligrams throughout the entire meal, while the person sitting next to you could have up to 150, 200. So we're able to make sure that you're in a safe space. We communicate with you. We usually do 5, 7, 9 courses. So there's some time in between, meaning you're eating at the same time. So there's a safety kind of slow build, because, if it's entering through your liver, exactly right, it's fighting for surface area. So our goal is not to make anyone uncomfortable in any regard. In fact, quite the opposite. But we've had some great conversations. I mean, we've had people bring their parents to dinners. We've had, 30-year-olds bring their 60-year-old parents to the events that were curious. They say, hey, used to smoke grass back in the day, and we were interested in what's happening now. So I think there's a good mix. I think the commission here is very aware that this is a necessary thing to take place. My personal opinion is that they shouldn't be involved. I think this should just be a private event space where you check IDs at the door and people can bring their own cannabis and consume. I think the tax situation of having a license in this state, I was under the impression when we got started that the Cannabis Control Commission would be our biggest help, and they've actually been our biggest challenge. And some of the folks have left, and there's new people there, and a lot of them are great. But ultimately, there's a little too much control, way too many taxes. It's just not a good scenario. So Massachusetts probably would be a little further behind New York, Connecticut, New Jersey in opening some of these establishments here.
I also think, though, that we also have something else that's kind of like pushing back, like against cannabis consumption lounges and places is like, the Nicky New guy who goes out to Colorado and buys themselves a 200 milligram candy bar, eat the whole thing, and never smoked a day in their life, and ready to jump out their window.
Go to the ER. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's stupid because, the person who sold it to them should be smacked upside the head.
Correct. Yeah. Education again. I mean, education is probably the center part of all this, making sure your consumer understands, what they're getting into. But
that's what I've been saying this. I mean, you're beating the same drum that I beat, because it's like, since this industry has done a good job B2B, teaching other businesses how to be in business, but they've done a really piss poor job B2C, and that's business to the consumer, where we should be spending most of our time right now, especially what you just said about the fact of having customers bring their parents in. Most people don't understand that within the next 5 years, I think the biggest consumers of cannabis are going to be baby boomers.
They will be. They need it more than most folks in general.
They will be there, and they have the most disposable income. They have the most disposable income.
Great point. Yeah, and I think, just to touch back, the dinners allow us real FaceTime with people that are coming in. They can ask us questions in real time. We can sit and visit with them. They can spend time with us after the dinner. We find venues that are smoke friendly as well, so people can consume at the same time. But having that, we're building our community a small group at a time, but a lot of those folks stay involved and stay in our fold, and come to future events and support us, and we're thankful for them. But I do think that going through Crohn's, going through an autoimmune disease, talking with my gastroenterologist, all the tests, all the procedures, all the colonoscopies, there's no one really within the hospital walls that's advocating for any of this. They're not necessarily against it, but they can't support it. And so we're now trying to penetrate Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, support groups, other areas where we can have real conversations, with people that are going through the same thing. So the baby boomers, the older communities, states like Florida, where the population is in that demographic, are really important places to focus a lot of this education.
Absolutely, and I see we haven't even scratched the surface on the way this can also be delivered. I mean, I believe that we can deliver this to the consumer, not just in a way where I got to answer a flyer that says, "Do you want to go to dinner on Friday night?" But if I have locations that are set up where people know that they're going to be, and then we could put a schedule up and let them know that it's there. I just think that the way you approach people about this is going to be take on a whole different world for itself.
Totally agree. We have a website, seatleaf.com, SEATLEAF, and that's where we put tickets up for our dinners and weekend getaways, and we have a lot of conversations with folks there. But we think there's another layer of, especially being in the Boston area with the medical community here. Let's say you're going in for a colonoscopy next week. I'm Montel. My exam is on Wednesday. I'm X years old. I have X allergies. We would basically schedule a meal replacement, whether it's food, whether it's smoothies, whether it's something that works for you, to be delivered to your home upon your return from the hospital. Because when you have these procedures, you have nothing left in your body, literally. There's no nutrients. You're dehydrated, so many things. And why not have a plant-based recovery option that can be delivered to your door?
Correct.
So you have nutrients, food, vegetables, fruits with cannabis at the same time to get back on your feet.
Cannabis, or you do non-THC infusion?
Absolutely. Yeah, we do minor cannabinoids as well. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, you got any new products coming down the pipe? Anything we don't know about?
We do. Nothing we can quite talk about yet here, but if you go to plantjam.co, you'll see a lot of things that we're working on. Obviously, Instagram's a good place to stay up in the news, but
You said
excited for
plantjam.gov?
.co, .co, excuse me.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Yeah, for sure. And if people want any other information about what you're doing, that's where they get it at?
Correct.
Well, look, my friend, I can't wait for us to get a chance to meet in person.
Same
I'd love to sit down and share a meal with you. And maybe sometime I'll come by your spot and we can do an afternoon of cooking.
We'd love to have you.
I throw down with some good stuff.
We'll have an apron ready for you when you get here.
I'm a crab cake dude, my friend. I make a crab cake that's mean. I also do a lot with fish. Yeah.
Yeah, keep us in the loop. We'd love to have you.
Cool, my friend. All right, well, you take care of yourself. Thank you so much
too.
for being a part of Let's Be Blunt today, and keep us posted on what's going on. You know, sometime when you have some event coming up, just send it off to Keith, and I'll make sure I put it up on Let's Be Blunt. Okay.
Will do. Thank you so much.
All right, my friend. You stay well, be safe, love that family of yours, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Take care.
And the same thing to you. Make sure you tune in to the next edition. Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Thanks for joining me on Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear your feedback also, so please send us your comments.